I actually own the first two Deadpool movies over from Fox, but they're movies that I just haven't revisited very much. It's not that they're bad. It's just not quite my speed. But they're fun. But Wolverine, he's always been one of my favorites, so I had to see this movie, right? So don't worry, Deadpool and Wolverine, yes, it's a thing. No spoilers in this review until later on in the video. And don't worry, I'll warn you once we get there. But yeah, just make sure that if you're watching this and you still haven't seen the movie yet, be wary of, I don't know, the entire internet and especially the comment section, because I'm sure people are going to want to talk about what they saw down in the comment section. So just be wary of that. But yeah, here we go. This movie is very different. If you have never seen a Deadpool movie, I don't understand why you'd be watching this one. But yeah, this is just like the other Deadpool movies. They're extremely funny, just absolutely hilarious, and they are not for the faint of heart. But if you've seen the Deadpool movies, you already know that. My wife in particular, not a huge fan of the dirty humor. So I will say that for her, it went too far in places, but she still had a pretty good time. But like I said, it went too far. I guess I'm damaged beyond repair because overall, I think they could have gone further. The jokes are great though, and in my opinion, they never come at the expense of the heart being showed. Like when it's time to have that moment of actual heart, it's there, and it's not really ruined like I maybe thought that it could have been. I feel like Deadpool 2 was a little shaky in that regard, but still, it's more like the first movie in that respect, where it's there is a heart there, even under this very crude and vulgar shell. There's heart there. The jokes are great, like I said, but it's the meta quality and super meta, ultra meta, like more meta than just about anything out there. And I mean, we're talking about the Marvel Fox situation comes into focus. You know what I mean? Like they talk about that a lot, which is, I mean, as somebody who pays attention to that stuff, I really enjoyed that. And even talking about the actors and their personal lives, and that's interesting. That was, and it got quite a few laughs, but wow, some of it I just didn't expect, and they really go for it in the violence department as well. So, if you're for whatever reason watching a Deadpool movie and thinking that it's going to be all, roses, no, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of gore, and it's Deadpool. It's fun. There are quite a few cameos in this movie that I won't spoil, but I will say that there was one of them that made me say out loud, holy. I never thought that the acting was going to be bad, and no, the acting is great across the board. It's really, really good. Of course, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are born to play these roles of Deadpool and Wolverine, and yeah, you can feel their friendship. You can feel that they're having a good time, and that's never a bad thing when you can feel that. And one of the other things is that there's a surprising, like I said it, I mentioned it before, there is a surprising amount of heart in this movie displayed by both characters. And it's not that I don't think that those actors are capable of that. I just didn't expect it in this movie as much as it is. Emma Corrin plays the antagonist, and I don't want to say anything about her character, especially if you don't know who she is, because I don't want to ruin it. But I think she did a pretty good job with what she had there. Yeah. And Matthew McFadden is hilarious. I mean, if you saw Succession, you know that guy is hilarious, and he brings that same sort of energy into this, and he was really fun. He was a really fun character. He's an employee of the TVA who recruits Deadpool in a mission that I won't reveal. But yeah, it's a fun performance. But you may be asking, Rob, why? You haven't talked about the story at all. Well, number one, I don't want to spoil it, but I think that's where I'm a bit disappointed with the movie. And it's because the story does have implications, but it always felt like it was backseat to everything else. Let me explain. There are moments where it almost feels like a movie that doesn't need a plot. And it almost feels like all the fun that we're having is sort of, some of it gets kind of taken away a little bit by the plot, which is a strange thing to say. But I would say at about the 2/3 mark, there is a moment where I felt this is getting long and it's starting to, I wouldn't say overstay its welcome, but it definitely felt like, okay, are we going to start wrapping this up now? And what's funny is there is a moment where that's sort of addressed. That's kind of funny. So really, that's the big thing. Even though there are, in my opinion, the antagonist is kind of like other Marvel antagonists, where they're introduced, they do some things, but then it sort of takes a back seat to other things. I don't want to go into too much, but I'm serious. I was having a great time. I had a smile on my face from the opening scene, and it was hard for me to not enjoy myself. So I would say, yeah, if you're a fan of Deadpool's shtick, you're a fan of the Deadpool movies. I would even say if you're a big fan of Marvel, even though you may be like Deadpool's fine, whatever, he's kind of dirty or whatever, it's kind of gory. It's a fun time, especially if you're a Fox Marvel fan, like if you're a fan of that era, it makes you sort of nostalgic for that. And I really enjoyed that part of the movie. Is really fun. This is going to be one of those movies though that it's going to be interesting to see how it plays once everybody has seen the movie, and so that the surprises aren't really surprises anymore. Does it have that staying power? Like as I said, because the story is a bit thin, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to play in the future. Like, is this going to be somebody's favorite Marvel movie? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I will also say, make sure that you stay through the credits. There is a mid-credit scene, and then there's a final scene, like at the very end of the credits. It doesn't have future movie implications or anything like that, but it is fun and it's funny. So there you go. So now it's spoiler time. So if you have not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, then click away, because I'm about to spoil the crap out of this movie. We're going to talk about all the cameos and some of the other things about the movie that I want to discuss. So yeah, that's your warning. Here we go. So first off, Chris Evans. It's funny the way that it was playing. I thought, wait a minute, is he Cap or is he? It doesn't make sense that he'd be Cap. It wouldn't make sense. He's got to be Human Torch, right? Because he's in the previous Fox universe as Human Torch. And when that happened, it put a huge smile on my face, and I was like, this is great. The way that it played out was perfect, because it almost makes you think that it's going to be Captain America. It was really, really funny stuff, and I really enjoyed that. And then Jennifer Garner walks in as Elektra. Complete surprise. Had no idea. I mean, of course, Chris Evans was a complete surprise, but I didn't, it's different because he's playing, you know what I mean? It almost feels different. Jennifer Garner, like I don't know if anybody was looking at, some of those older Fox movies and saying, yeah, it's got to be Jennifer Garner, right? But then Channing Tatum comes in as Gambit, and that is extremely funny if you know the history of Gambit, and that there were so many times where Channing Tatum was almost Gambit, and he wanted to play Gambit so bad, and the movie was in, it had all kinds of script problems. The directors kept falling out and all that kind of stuff. And then they brought the character of Gambit in, but Taylor Kitsch played him because Channing Tatum was off doing something else. And then he comes back and he's doing, he's like, I want to make a Gambit movie. And they got so close, and it just never came together. But then Disney bought Fox, and it was no longer going to happen. So it was really funny seeing him show up. But the one that made me say, holy shit, was Wesley Snipes. I was like, Wesley Snipes, Blade, isn't that New Line? Like, that's Warner Brothers, right? So that was really, really interesting to see him. I actually got to make sure. Yes, New Line. So New Line is owned by Warner Brothers. So it's really interesting to see him show up in the movie. Wow. I don't know if you saw this in the credits, but Lady Deadpool was played by Blake Lively, right? Ryan Reynolds' wife. And there were a lot of rumors going around that might be Taylor Swift, but it was Blake Lively. I'm just kind of surprised that she never got any FaceTime. Like I would have expected that, but hey, it was still pretty funny. And then also there's Cowboy Deadpool. I didn't know who that was. Turns out it's Matthew McConaughey. I didn't learn that until I pulled up the IMDb earlier. So yeah, that was pretty good. But the one that made me like, I mean, seriously, I think my favorite one, even though I didn't, it almost took me a minute to realize it. And then by the time I realized it, they were moving on. So it was kind of like, oh, Henry Cavill as Wolverine was hilarious. And because he's been sort of like rumored to be Wolverine for a long time, a possible replacement for Hugh Jackman. So that was really fun to see. One of the things that Kevin Feige said was that yeah, this movie has a surprising amount of heart, which it did. But I was expecting to have tears, because I saw even some of the early reactions were saying, yeah, tears were shed. And I'm like, I mean, I guess if you really, think that, Deadpool and Wolverine were going to die at the end, maybe, but I was never that moved. But it was the retrospective during the mid credits. I was really moved by that. And it's just because it's so cool to see a Disney movie really kind of show their love and their appreciation for what came before. I thought that was really cool and very classy. And of course, look at, seeing a young Hugh Jackman talking about how nervous he was and all that kind of stuff. And then Ryan Reynolds saying, "Oh man, I've always wanted to play this role." And it was just cool to see. I mean, it warmed my heart a little bit, I just love that. And I didn't want to talk about this in the non-spoiler section. It's not like super spoilery, but it's just the fact that I really wanted the story to have more meat on it, that Cassandra Nova, right? I thought she was going to be a big deal, like going forward, maybe that she was going to be somebody, not like some supervillain like Thanos, but somebody that would survive this movie and maybe have other things to do. Because I found her to be a super interesting character, but she's sidelined at the end because Wolverine and Deadpool are, of course, the focus of the movie. So that was kind of a bummer to me. And then also, I mean, that's the big spoiler part, but this is the other thing, is that I really wanted the movie to have more implications for Marvel going forward. Like, I saw the TVA and I knew that Fox was coming in, and that they were, it's Deadpool, right? So they're going to reference that stuff. I really wanted the movie to have more of a, like, oh my God, I can't believe that's the direction they're going. And I thought the TVA was a great way to bring in the Fox universe. So it's just kind of a bummer that it feels like this might be just like a one and done, and Marvel is going to continue doing what they're doing, which is fine. But it was like, I wanted this movie to matter more, I guess, if that makes sense, which kind of, is very similar to, Wade Wilson's feeling at the beginning of the movie. I wanted this to matter more, and I just don't know if it will. So I guess that's it. So look, I'm interested to hear what you're thinking, about Deadpool and Wolverine. Did you think it was like, like this great movie, it's your favorite movie of the year or something like that? For me, I feel like this is out of 4 stars, I would give it like a 3.1 out of 4. Like it's worth watching if you're a fan, but it's almost to that point where, yeah, if you're not a fan, I don't know, there's not a whole lot of meat there, for somebody who's not like a super fan of Marvel and Deadpool and all that kind of stuff and Wolverine. I don't know. But I'm curious. I'm curious what your thoughts are. What was your favorite cameo? Just let's talk about that stuff. Let's talk about all the things that we wanted to talk about. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. It means a lot to me. All those views, any views mean the world to me. So I appreciate that. But we'll see you on the next one.